Welcome into Clipboard Conversations. John Foky alongside Hornets head coach James Borrego. Hornets in the midst of a 4-game East Coast road trip. We're going to talk about that. Take your questions in our Ask JB segment. And of course, we'll take a look ahead at the end of this road trip and getting back home to face Chicago. But we'll kick things off, Coach, with some trends. And one trend that we've seen this season, late game execution from your team. How fun have these last couple of games been being in those situations where you're coming out of a timeout? You've got to execute to give yourself an opportunity to win a game. As a coach, what is that like, being in that huddle?
Stressful. It's fun after the win, I can tell you that. In the moment, there's a lot of talk, but staying poised, staying in the moment. We've talked about that a tremendous amount this season. Just stay present, stay in the moment, and focus in on what we need to. And our guys have done a great job all year. Even with some of the losses down the stretch, we've done a really good job executing. And the last few games, we've done that. Overall this season, I think we've done that. We've won a number of close games. And I think it just goes back to how we prepare, how we practice, the details there, how we execute. So in those moments, we're not surprised. But what I can say is that, for a younger group being together for the first time, this is rare that you don't see this type of execution at this level right now. But I'm really proud of the group. They're doing a great job executing and then putting us in position to be there.
When you go into that final huddle, I'm sure in your mind you've got a couple of different options that you want to throw out there based on kind of how the game is going. You can script out the perfect play, but the guys have to execute it. And then there's wild cards of what the defense is going to do. So after you send them out, do you just kind of let go of the moment? How do you handle when they walk out there so that knowing it's on, it's out of your hands?
Well, you can only control so much as a coach. You prepare them, you give them a script to play from, then players play. They make the plays, and that's why these men are special players, that they can go out and execute. It's my job as a coach to try to prepare them, to give them 1, 2, or 3 options in those moments to read and react. And then you never know how a defense is going to play, and you just have to react accordingly. And so far we've done that. I think we've executed very well down the stretch. But yeah, at some point it's, your hands are off. You turn them over to the game, and so far guys have delivered. I
imagine a lot of fans look at that and say, wow, everything just comes together in that final huddle. But it doesn't. You guys work on these situations in practice, and so that when they're in this, the guys, as you said, they're not surprised, and these guys haven't looked surprised at all.
Yeah, we walk through these plays, a number of times. We know what we're looking for. We prepare every game, for those moments, and it's up to our guys to go execute. But those are just some big time shots that we're making. It doesn't matter what play you draw up as a coach. It can look pretty. At the end, these guys got to make plays and make shots. And it's not just that. It's the screen setup. It's the passer. It's all that type of execution that allows a shot like that to go down.
I'm glad you brought up the passing, because we talk about the experience that some of these young guys are getting. Cody Martin with the inbound pass to Malik Monk, P.J. Washington the pass over the weekend to Devontae Graham. This is experience that these guys are getting that you can't replicate in practice or in scrimmages.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's nothing like game time, when we're at our highest stress level to go execute. You can't replicate that in practice. So this is incredible experience. It's wonderful that our young guys are getting these moments. We're only going to be better for it down the road. But I'm really proud of them, and it takes everybody. It's not just one guy out there. It's all of us pulling together. I think the guys on the bench have been fantastic. Their support of these guys, both the vets, the young guys. It's been a pretty special couple of weeks here.
And so as we look at a lot of the numbers, the 3-point shooting, you've been a plus in that category. Now suddenly we're looking at points off turnovers. You're a plus there. The other thing is free throw differential. You're getting to the free throw line about 5 more times than your opponents. And so when you think of kind of all these little miscellaneous categories, that's a big one as well, getting free opportunities at the stripe.
Yeah, for sure, and it just shows your aggressiveness. When we want to attack the paint, get to the rim, I think that free throw number, if we're winning that battle most nights, it looks to me that we're being the aggressors for the most part. So attack the rim, get to the paint, put pressure on the officials to make calls. If you see 2 bodies, kick it for someone else to make an open shot. And I think we've done a really good job. Driving kick game's been there, but that free throw number is big for us.
It's been a lot of fun to watch this team over the last couple of weeks. We'll talk more about what's coming up in our final segment, but next we take your questions as we ask JB right here on Clipboard Conversations. Clipboard Conversations continues. John Foky alongside Hornets head coach James Borrego. Time to ask JB, and as we do each and every week, we put the call out to you via social media, asking your questions for head coach James Borrego. We appreciate those who send in the topics, and don't forget, follow the Hornets across all their social media platforms to take advantage of opportunities like this. We've had some real fun ones. Last week we learned your birthday dinner, so tacos, we're all going to remember that. And we got some good ones here this week as well. We're going to talk some basketball and some off-the-court stuff. And so we'll start with this one from Matt at GBOROMATT. Is there a part of the job that you feel you've improved on in your second season as head coach?
I think anytime your second year, you just feel more comfortable in all areas. I mean, in-game execution, how you practice. The biggest step for me is managing people, managing my staff, managing these players. I think that's the biggest step probably I've taken from year one to year two. But the more reps you get at anything in life, any profession, any skill, the better you are. So I feel much more prepared this season, and I've got a long way to go. I'm still growing, still learning. But that's the beauty in the journey.
John Combs 98 at John Combs 98, and I think this one's fascinating. What stat outside of obviously the score do you look at as maybe the most important in terms of winning?
Well, there's a lot there. No, there's a number of stats we look at. Obviously, we want to win the free throw line. Again, as we talked about, that's the aggressiveness piece. The paint game is always important for us. You know, it's something that we're moving towards, we're trending towards. Then the three-point line. The three-point line is huge in our game today. You got to win the three-point line, or at least play even at the three-point line. If you do those things, you're going to be pretty successful. And then we have other ones outside the box score that we track ourselves, and that's a transition number for us. Are we taking away transition points for our opponent, and how are we doing in our transition game? And that may not always be reflected in necessarily the fast break number, but it's a number that we track. So are we playing at the pace we want to play at? So you add that to the aggressiveness piece and the free throw line, for the most part, that tells us a pretty good story of how we played that night.
In your second year now, have you maybe gotten more comfortable with some of those stats, or found the ones that work for you that tell those stories than maybe when you were in this position last year or as an assistant a couple years ago, just kind of as more information has become available?
I think last year I was looking at too much information. I think I was too broad last year and I think we've gotten more specific in our details and filtering that to our players. I don't want our players looking at 8 or 10 stats a game. That's just too many. Let's focus on 2 or 3 things every night that we can look at and point to. That way we stay focused in those areas. And a lot of those for us right now are on the defensive end, and then the attack in the paint. Like, we want to get a ton of paint touches offensively. And right now, every night after I look at our numbers that I get from George Rodman, who does a great job, we're winning the paint touch game. We get to the paint more than our opponents for the most part, and that's a good sign for us.
Here's one from David Harley Boyd. What does Malik Monk need to do to continue the upward trend that we've seen out of him?
Keep working, keep growing, continue to do what got you to this point so far this season. There's no trick, there's no magic, magic play, magic practice right here. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep working, keep putting one day together at a time. And so far he's been very consistent. He looks much more comfortable out there, and it's just a process for young guys, one day at a time. And he's still a very young player in this league, and he's got a bright upside.
I feel like that advice could go for Malik. It could go for just about every guy on this roster. We'll wrap up our Ask JB segment with this one from Daniel Marsh. Fill in the blank, coach. If I hadn't become a basketball coach, I would be
a beach volleyball player.
A beach volleyball
player. What's a better job than that?
I don't know, radio broadcaster for an NBA team?
That's a good point.
Do you have experience, background in beach volleyball? I know spent some
time
in San Diego.
Played a little bit in high school, and then San Diego played a little bit. I just couldn't jump very high, so maybe that cut me out of that mix too. But man, it's no better job, live on the beach,
Yeah.
play some volleyball, hang out in the sun, can't beat it.
And there's a number of NBA guys. I think of Chase Budinger, who was a very good beach volleyball
I think he's up there.
player.
He's ranked very high right now, so he's
Yeah.
doing a great job.
So there is a precedence. All right, well, now we know what we're doing this summer, beach volleyball. We thank you guys so much for your questions here on Ask JB. We'll wrap things up, taking a look at what's up next right here on Clipboard Conversations. Wrapping up Clipboard Conversations, we take a look at what's up next. A couple more games on the road, Coach, before at home for one and then back out on the road once again. When you're in a stretch like this, how do you manage rest, practice, preparation, travel, games, all that kind of stuff?
It's a big part of the NBA schedules, managing these schedules and these moments. Our performance team, myself, it's a collaborative effort right now, just making sure, number one, our guys are healthy and they're fresh. You could be the best team in the world, but if you're not healthy and you're not fresh, it's not going to matter. So we need our guys to be there, but still growing at the same time. So using film work to grow and develop, making sure our individual times with coaches are being had so our player development doesn't lose a step. We said number one, we want to compete. Number two is player development, and we don't want to lose that. You could lose that in a stretch like this where you get so caught up in the schedule and you're trying to limit guys on the court. There's still an element of development that you can have even off the court. So watching film, doing our walkthroughs, making sure the guys that aren't playing necessarily high minutes are getting some good work in as well. So it's managing the entire roster. It's 1 through 15. We got a couple guys in Greensboro right now, so we got 2 guys playing heavy minutes out there. We got a number of guys playing heavy minutes with us, and then that group that's sort of in the middle, they're getting extra work. They're getting 5-on-5, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 work. So it's really a full roster management. It's not, every single guy's not seeing the same schedule every single day or every single week, and it's our job to manage that.
Speaking of managing this roster, you finally got healthy over the weekend. You got Nick Batum back, you got Dwayne Bacon back. First, your thoughts on Nick, and then just maybe moving forward, how do you manage having a full roster here, which you haven't had for much of the year?
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. Got a number of guys I could go to, I believe in. I can't play them all, though. They only give me 48 minutes a night, and you can only play 5 guys at a time last time I checked the rules. So, we can't, these guys got to stay ready. I love having Nick back. There's a more experience there, more playmaking. I really like him with that second unit. I think he's been really good for Malik. He can help Terry as Terry runs that second unit. It's been very good for us, and I think the game there in New York was it showed us what that can do, and his playmaking. I think he and PJ are going to have a really nice connection. The Nick PJ combination is going to be nice for us. So, and then his defense has been fantastic. I think our defense has only been amped up with Nick's length, his experience, his knowledge of the game. So it's great to have him back. Obviously, that may bump somebody out of the rotation, but that's a healthy thing, and what I call healthy competition amongst our group. That's what elevates your level of play from within. You want guys pushing each other, competing against one another, but ultimately staying together through the process.
You mentioned that Nick-PJ combination. I think that stood out to me in that New York game as well, and I think what kind of blew my mind was those guys haven't played a lot together. So it's not like Nick's returning and falling in saying, I played with PJ for months, years beforehand.
Just two good basketball players playing together. You put 2 high IQ basketball players on any court in any gym in the world, they're going to figure out how to play the game the right way. And those are 2 guys that understand the game, know how to play, and hopefully only get better playing together.
Couple more games on the road, then back home for Chicago. Get your tickets at Hornets.com. Coach, thanks so much for the time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Head coach James Borrego, this is Clipboard Conversations.